Welcome to the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast.
Every week, they talk about the Vancouver Canucks with a fair amount of nonsense thrown in.
Sure, they're never the first with the news, nor the best connected, and definitely more off the rails than on.
But they've been talking puck the longest, and that counts for something, right?
So strap in for the longest running, best mediocre Canucks Hockey Podcast.
It's C4 with Chris and Anna.
It's me, it's Chris. Anna's with me, virtually as always. Hey Anna, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. It's finally sunny in Vancouver. The rain has stopped, which we never thought it would. What's that?
Spring break is over.
Oh yeah, that'll be it.
Yeah, it's my daughter got outside maybe 3 times over the course of a 2-week period because, short of sending her out in the rain, which I suppose we could have done, she was inside getting a little stir crazy, full of beans. And this week she's back to school, and it looks like it's a mix of sun and cloud most of the week. So it's just the way it is.
Well, thank you to Ari and kids everywhere in Vancouver for their sacrifice because I couldn't take another week of that.
Yeah. Well, it did give her the opportunity to hang out with me and watch the Vancouver Canucks, play some hockey. And it gave her the opportunity to understand that no lead when the Vancouver Canucks have it is ever going to be safe.
Mm-hmm. It's good that she learned this pain and suffering early.
Well, I don't know if she's learned the lesson quite yet. I think it's just the type of lesson that you experience a few times over and over.
It's true.
It finally sinks in deep into your soul.
Yeah. Well, our friends over at Canucks Conversation, Harmon Dial, called Vancouver a cursed franchise, and I think that's true. It's when the hope comes and it grabs you, and you start to believe, and then your hopes are dashed.
But I was going to say, I don't think it's cursed because the hope continues to grab me. I have been a fan.
But that's the problem.
And I know what's going to happen. I look at it and I'm like, you fooled me a good 20, 25 times before, but this time might be that difference. So by golly, I'm all in. And then I'm not. And it hurts over and over. I'm going to drop an old school Peanuts reference here. It's like Charlie Brown trying to kick the football and Lucy pulling it away time and time again.
But he continues to believe that Lucy won't do it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of it.
Oh, man, we're going to talk about the week that was. And to be quite honest, if this week was, let's say, in November, it was a pretty good week of hockey.
Yeah, actually.
The Vancouver Canucks did better than you and I had expected, but it still wasn't good enough.
And not to mention, they're doing it with dealing with injuries. So again, if this was in November, you'd be thinking, oh, well, they're going to be so much better once they get their full strength.
They might still be so much better. The problem is they're running out of time.
Too much late.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to get into the week that was, the week that will be, and the playoffs that won't, and everything else that we can think of over the course of a normal episode. But before we get into Rewind, I just want to take a moment to recognize that the second longest Vancouver Canucks podcast is coming to an end. Pucks on Net, they announced in their last show, so the show last week, that this will be their last season. They've got a few episodes left that they plan on recording, but I have to be very honest, it caught me by surprise. There was the two OGs, Pucks on Net and C4, right? And a lot of other podcasts since. There have been podcasts that have been successful in their own right that launched after the two of us who faded for a variety of reasons. And I just never thought that, Pond wouldn't be around. But they are in their last season, unless something were to change. Maybe the Canucks put some magic together and make a run out of this.
That's true. Well, that would be a fun way to end. But yeah, like you say, they've been around for such a long time. Like us, they've kind of gone through different versions and iterations and journey. It's all part of their journey. And mad respect.
Yeah, but if you can, give them a shout out. wish him well. They, as you had mentioned, gone through different iterations. Ryan has been there from the beginning, just like I've been there from the beginning with C4. And it's interesting that he and I only finally got to collaborate together, was it last summer? For reasons unbeknownst to us. But best of luck. Ryan, Gita, and Arash, you'll obviously be around and back into things, I'm certain, but puck's on net. Surely to be missed. So the Vancouver Canucks got underway in New Jersey. It was the Hughes Bowl. Missing one Hughes, who's done for the season. I knew he was hurt. I didn't realize he had surgery and was done for the season.
Yeah, I think I was pretty sure he was. I knew about the surgery, so Jack Hughes is a hell of a player, so certainly hurts New Jersey to be down such a player. Mm-hmm. They're not doing like the Canucks do, where they just trot out their hurt player like, weekend at Bernie's and prop him up and hope for the best. But it works out pretty well, actually.
So, okay, I'm gonna. You brought up the reference to trotting out their hurt Hughes. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna jump into the game that just happened today. Quinn Hughes put together nearly a 5-minute shift to end the game. Like, he is broken. He's not well. He's still doing great things despite the injury he's obviously playing through. Mm-hmm. And it didn't look like there was any indication that, one, he wanted off the ice, nor did the coaches want him off the ice either, because they weren't entirely sure what they would send out in his place. Unfortunately for the Vancouver Canucks, Quinn Hughes included, didn't work out. But could you imagine, what the Canucks might be like with a healthy Quinn Hughes? Something we'll probably talk about in Half Full, Half Empty. Maybe, with the season as going as it is, it would have been smart to shut Quinn down a little bit longer in retrospect. But
like you say, it's kind of on the player too, right? Like, you'll see him in overtimes last week, 2 weeks ago, where he just refuses to come off the ice. So you're just like, that's the kind of player he is. Not that people shouldn't be looking out for his welfare outside of the player, but...
No. And I also want to make it very clear, you might not be wanting to come off the ice, but you're not hearing about it from, Talkit and other coaches or other players, because I think it's genuinely accepted. The Vancouver Canucks are infinitely better with Quinn Hughes on the ice than when they're not. Mm-hmm. It's even hurtful when he's sitting on the bench watching others play the game.
Because he has that expression on his face that he just looks so sad all the time. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, I get it.
But coming back into the game to kick things off on the week that was, Vancouver got things underway. Midway through the first period, as they are apt to do, they score these early goals. And you're like, hey, Vancouver's back in it. P.S. I want to get paid and take all the bag suitor. Mm-hmm. Gets himself his, I guess at the time it would have been his 21st of the season. And I have to think about this because he's scoring goals.
A lot of them. And getting them chalked off and then not getting them chalked off. So, Yeah.
But, beyond the goal, which was, exciting in its own right, there's something about New Jersey, Vancouver hockey that is boring as all can be.
Yeah, and in recent years, it's often been because Canucks cannot score on a New Jersey goalie, no matter who it is. And New Jersey very much had Canucks' number, but it wasn't an exciting game for a lot of it until it was.
Yeah, until it was. And one might suggest that it got exciting in the third period. It kind of did. I will concede. I would have rather not get it exciting the way it did. But Vancouver, with another period of boring hockey that I honestly can't remember much of, find themselves tied up with a Timo Meier goal on the power play. Only to have Timo Meier score again halfway through the third period in a game where it felt like there's no way that Vancouver had more than one goal in them. So, when Jonathan Lekkerimäki scores, before they've announced the second Timo Meier goal, you're like, Vancouver is playing like a team that knows they can't lose, which you would think would prevent them from making brutal mistakes, resulting in Eric Holla's goal to give New Jersey a 1-goal lead, essentially late in the period. It was at this point Vancouver realized that, things needed to turn around, and they started shooting the puck. They threw everything, the kitchen sink, baby in the bathwater, like everything was being thrown at Markstrom.
Yeah, and it is funny, I talked about, Devils goalies, rising up to meet the Canucks. I feel like, Markstrom thought, I have this revenge game on lock. Again, until he didn't.
Yeah. Connor Garland notches the tying goal with, half a minute left in the period. Vancouver's going into overtime.
It was literally just throwing everything they could on net, including the players, and into the net, and yeah.
And, in overtime, I don't know, there were opportunities both ways.
So,
but a lot of the whole, let's cycle the puck back to our own blue line, let's control. Again, we've talked about this thing a few episodes back. That's the part that drives me nuts.
And Rick Tocchet as well. It drives him nuts too. So I missed overtime. I went into a movie for overtime, so I caught up with the result right after. And the highlights of overtime started at 4 minutes 30 something. So they didn't have much to say.
No, it was a game. Overtime was a snapshot of what we saw over the course of the game, minus the sort of the third period craziness that occurred. Quinn Hughes got close to 32 minutes of ice time. The next closest to him, I think, was Myers. No, it was Roenick, 25-14. Myers at 21-57. But in the shootout, we saw some, I don't want to say questionable decisions from Jersey, but there's something about Vancouver goaltenders, in this particular case, it being Thatcher Demko, who can stop pucks in a shootout.
Yes. Was this his first game back?
I'm pretty sure it was, because...
Yeah, we didn't probably talk about that. He did some, some impressive moves. Of course, you don't necessarily want to see those moves when goalie's been out as long as they have been, but overall, not a ton of rust.
No, not at all. And when, Lekkerimaki scores to win it, Markstrom, big mad.
Big mad.
My daughter.
Do we have to...
Daughter wanted to know why he snapped his stick and that he should get a penalty for that.
I mean, great point from Ari. Do we have to talk about the stick 12 thing? Ridiculous that people are upset about it. Even if it was a bit of a flourish. He did it before he took up the puck. It's just twitch he has. He's apparently done it a ton of times.
Yeah, so...
it's just a weird automatic muscle thing, but...
I'm going to, point, our listeners over to, let's say, the game of baseball. How often do you see a batter get up to the plate and they tap the bat on different places? Yeah. They... scratch their shoulder, pitchers who, they constantly adjust their hat's got to be the right direction. Goaltenders in hockey, how many times do they have to hit which particular post with
I know, in order, right?
The stick?
In cricket, it's gardening with your bat.
It's a superstition, it's a flourish, it's something that you do because it puts you into that moment.
Yeah.
Was he, to use a baseball vernacular, calling his shot, pointing to a particular, placement? No, he wasn't. He was just
showboating.
He's just let's go.
I think it would take a lot of guts for someone before their first ever NHL shootout attempt to showboat before you've taken the puck.
Honestly, if it was Lekkerimaki showboating, good on the kid.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't care either way, but I just doubt it was.
Cognes, but it wasn't. Anyhow, Vancouver gets the 2 points. And this is the thing. Vancouver is at that stage. We talked about it last episode. they need points in every game better. They need 2 points every game. There was a statistic that showed the Vancouver Canucks a number of overtime losses that if they were to have simply won half of those OTLs, they'd currently be sitting pretty close to a wild card spot. And how many times have we seen the Vancouver Canucks make horrible mistakes in overtime or allow games to get to overtime in the first place? Again, too late, can't firm that part up now. But this was a game where it went to overtime, but the Vancouver Canucks manufactured a way to get 2 points. So then the Vancouver Canucks go into New York, head to Long Island, take on the Islanders. Vancouver came out and played the Islanders in the first period like they were playing Jersey all over again. And I honestly feel that the Canucks were lucky not to have left down a goal or two after the first period.
Yeah, I do think Demko was a big part of that. Like, lots of split saves that made you kind of cringe and think, oh my god, his poor groin, but...
Mm-hmm. And there, Tom Larscheid wasn't up in the box to go down to the dressing room and give us a report. Have you heard about that reference?
No, it doesn't sound familiar. Tell it to me in case I have.
So, it's eons ago, but Pavel Bure had some tightness, some groin tightness or whatever. And Tom Larscheid was talking about how he had gone down to the dressing room, checked on players, asked some questions. And he phrased his sort of update as being, I went down to the dressing room to check on Pavel Bure's groin, and it's not going to hold him back. Like,
nice. I mean, Tom Larscheid, what a legend.
Tommy was telling it how it was. I don't think Tommy was down there going, Dr. Larscheid.
Yeah, with his
Pavel.
little gloves on.
Probably talk to a trainer, something like that. Maybe talk to Pavel, for all I know. I don't know, but... no, the Vancouver Canucks were lucky to get out of the first, not down a goal. And start off the second by getting a goal from, Hits King, Kiefer Sherwood. You'd think...
Hits King, that has a Z, doesn't it?
It does, totally. You'd think, you would take this goal, you'd be like, yeah, let's do some good stuff with it. Shortly after the goal, the Vancouver Canucks go onto the power play, and guess what? A goal is scored. Problem? Not for Vancouver. New York pots a shorthanded goal. Casey Cizikas off of a turnover. Like, I don't know how you would... It was a good play. That, resulted
Can I
in,
just mention here that I've never heard of this player before?
Casey Cizikas?
Yeah.
Like,
almost every player in the National Hockey League, even if you don't know what they look like or what kind of player they are, you've heard of them. And I was like, who is this guy? So I'm admitting my ignorance there.
And, following it up only a few minutes after is Tony D'Angelo, Mr. Horrible. But it gave New York a 2-1 lead. And in previous games where you've seen the Vancouver Canucks, survive a period of hockey only to then find themselves into a, proverbial shootout, it never goes the way for the Vancouver Canucks, unless it was that particular night. Atu Ratu and Derek Forbort go and give not only the Canucks the tie, but a 1-goal lead going into the second intermission. And coming out of the intermission, Teddy Bluger puts the Vancouver Canucks up by 2 early. They hold on. And I say hold on because they provided the Islanders opportunities to test Thatcher Demko many, many times over. But Kiefer Sherwood pots another goal, empty net, to bookend that 5-2 victory.
Yeah.
Just in summary, another 2 points.
And depth scoring. I mean, Artu Ratu could barely get a game for the Islanders. Obviously, he's not playing regularly for the Canucks either. But, he's definitely stepping up in his sort of Canucks injury-enforced lineup change.
Yeah. Quinn Hughes did not have the most ice time of Vancouver Canuck players. That honor goes to Philip Hronek, who had close to a minute more, actually a minute and a half more than Quinn. Tyler Myers, +4. And I know plus minus as a statistic is, loosey-goosey, but when Tyler Myers is on the ice for goals that are getting scored by the Vancouver Canucks rather than against the Vancouver Canucks,
Yeah.
that is a good thing.
Yeah. I agree. I'm trying to think of the week that was for Tyler Myers. I can't think of it. Like, I'm sure there was maybe one or two egregious giveaways, but it wasn't a terrible week for Tyler Myers. I think it was probably a good week.
Tyler Myers, to his credit, has looked more like late season last year Tyler Myers.
Yeah.
You kind of know what you get, but you're getting even more than that. And that in the good sense. That's not what we were getting from Tyler earlier this season.
True. And the thing is, it's all easier to stomach at the contract he's currently on.
Yeah. So Vancouver gets 2 points out of Jersey, 2 points out of New York. Thatcher Demko has returned. All must be good in the world. So that game against the Columbus Blue Jackets. If I were to have told you Vancouver was up 3-0, you know for certain they ran the week and got 4 wins, right?
Yeah, that's exactly how you would think it would go.
Yeah. So Vancouver got 3 goals over the course of like 5 minutes midway through the first period. Linus Karlsson on the power play, Brock Besser, Jake DeBrusk on the power play. Vancouver was dominant. They owned the Blue Jackets in the first period of that game. Kevin Lankinen in net, not really tested in the first period, but made the saves that needed to be made. And Vancouver was having their way with Columbus, maybe even prematurely looking ahead to the probably toughest game that they would have against Winnipeg today. Now, Columbus isn't a bad team. And during that intermission, probably got a couple strips torn off of them. But second period, Boone Jenner scores 34 seconds in. The Canucks have a 3-goal lead. 4:54, Kirill Marchenko scores. The Canucks leads down to 3-2. And at 8:44, Dante Fabro ties it up 3-3. And, I think it was at this point I had commented, there ain't no team that knows how to Canucks like the Vancouver Canucks can.
Yeah, Canucks will continue to Canuck until morale improves.
Yeah. But who was it we were talking about moments ago as having, better second half or, last third of the season?
That would be Tyler Myers. I was going to say his middle name there, but I don't know it. So
I haven't a clue. But Tyler the Chaos Giraffe Myers scores himself a shorthanded goal, midway through the third or second period. So I haven't got to the third period where more chaos will ensue. But Vancouver gets a shorty. They're up 4-3 going into the intermission.
That was a 4-minute power play too.
It was.
Yeah.
The
and you come out with a shorty.
The high-sticking double miter to... No, it was Lekaramaki, I think, that got it, right? The penalty?
That sounds familiar, but I cannot see.
But it was a double minor.
Currently.
Made a Blue Jacket bleed his
Elias
blood.
Pettersson.
Oh, it was DPD. Oh, okay.
DPD.
Yeah, well, sucks to be DPD. But don't worry, Tyler Myers got his back. And then the third period rolls out. Aturatu goes and scores to give the Vancouver Canucks now a 2-goal lead. Okay, the Canucks know how to Canuck, and they're no longer going to Canuck anymore. All is well. Kevin Lankinen, however, not in a position to stop beach balls in the third period. Had himself a tough game. The Vancouver Canucks, though, did not do much in the defensive end to support him in the third period either, because if there was an opportunity to be had, the Columbus Blue Jackets were given it. Denton Nichaychuk scores at 7:03. Late in the third period, 16:46, Boone Jenner scores a power play marker to give the Jackets the tie. And not only like 30 seconds later, they then have a 1-goal lead, courtesy of Mathieu Olivier. And I'm like, oh man, it's just, this is madness. Like, how is it that the Vancouver Canucks are going to lose this game? Oh, wait. Atu is like, no. Don't worry. We're playing this game of 30-second goals because, not even 30 seconds after that goal, he scores to tie it up. Madness. Pure and utter madness.
Yeah. It was Friday night hockey. It was drunk hockey. Like, I couldn't quite believe it. I was watching it alternately, like, at my desk, and then at a bar, and then on my phone. And I just couldn't quite believe what was happening. Once again, thrilled for Ratu. Like, he does seem to be making the most of moments. He is clutching all over the place. The sort of depth is scoring. It's good. But, like, you cannot be losing 2 multi-goal leads like that. And I know there's been a lot of talk about goalies and whether Kevin Lankinen's reached his sort of peak, his limit as to workload and how he can cope. But yeah.
Wasn't a good game for Kevin.
It definitely wasn't. But yeah.
The problem is the Vancouver Canucks as a team rely on their goaltender. And this has been their MO for how many ever seasons now. Hot goaltending is what will get them through. They were getting some hot goaltending from Kevin Lankinen early in the season, and that's the only reason that you and I are here recording this podcast where the Vancouver Canucks are not yet mathematically eliminated from postseason contention. That is all on Kevin Lankinen.
Yes, but, and I will discuss this more in detail in the next section, but, like, yeah, in a time where you kind of needed everything to go right and everything is starting to go wrong, and it's just, like, increasingly desperate and increasingly reliant on insane goaltending, and that's not what we got.
Speaking of desperation, the Vancouver Canucks sure looked like a desperate team in overtime. Like, they had, it occurred to me that they were on the ice thinking, well, we got to this point, let's not go to a shootout because we don't know how it will end. They tried to throw everything at Merzlikins. Problem is that in overtime, you can't go, full bore because next thing you know, you're giving up a 3-0, odd man rush the other direction. But Vancouver was not successful in scoring a goal in overtime, which resulted in a shootout. And
everyone left their goals in regulation, I guess.
Yeah, so Kent Johnson scores to get things underway for the Blue Jackets. Jake DeBrusk, Connor Garland, neither of those two score. Jonathan Lekkerimäki, I feel, had the best opportunity, but Merzlikins made the save. I am curious, though. Jake DeBrusk came in slow. I'm not a big fan of the slow
neither.
shootouts. You're taking a penalty shot, come in with some speed, but he comes in slow. Did you see the stare down that Merzlikins gave DeBrusk after the shot?
I don't recall it, no.
Like, it was... So DeBrusk takes a shot. It was not a bad shot, but Merzlikins makes the save. DeBrusk goes and skates to the right side of the corner, and Merzlikins just gives him a look. And it had me wondering, like, did something occur? Is there history there?
Because it's Jake DeBrusk, like, one of hockey's mild-mannered gentlemen. Like, I'm trying to imagine him having beef with someone.
Yeah, but that one goal from Kent Johnson was all that they needed because Vancouver couldn't score in their 3 attempts, and as a result, Columbus goes and gets themselves the dub. Now, the Vancouver Canucks did get a point. That's what's most important. Every game needs points. They prefer 2, but hey, Columbus took a bonus point off of them. Let's recoup. Let's go and play well in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
Now, needing strong goaltending, they returned to Thatcher Demko. Again, I'm going to assume they looked at Lankinen's game and decided, let's go back to the guy that's recovering and, was probably rushed back because Lankinen was either hurt or under the weather or who knows what. Because actually, rewinding the week Lankinen was not on the bench.
Yeah, for any of Demko starts. So
yeah, so he anyhow is what it is. The Vancouver Canucks get themselves a goal from P.S. I want to get paid the bag suitor. And while yes, Winnipeg looked like the better team, Demko made some stellar saves. Vancouver killed off.
Yeah, two-man advantage.
Two-man advantage.
Which both that was crazy extra cool. Like, I mean, we talk about like game management and how we hate game management, but like, I'm not saying there should be the higher threshold for penalty calls on a two-man advantage, but like, I didn't see that at all.
Okay, well, no, but to that point, if that's the threshold they're calling, there should be a lot more penalties called in the game.
Yeah, exactly. Which, isn't actually the case.
There seems to be some serious ebbs and flows, and you just are left scratching your head. Regardless, the Vancouver Canucks weathered many storms and leave the period with a 1-goal lead. It felt like Vancouver was going to do it, Anna, for a very brief moment.
Quick sidebar as to what was which was a very slow sidebar to the game, but just, oh my God, I cannot take these offside reviews.
What, the ones that take 10 minutes to look at it, whether or not the goal was allowed?
And then they end up saying, yeah, actually it was onside. Babe, you have no idea. Like, you just don't. But you just watched it for 10 minutes and you can't figure it out.
Yeah,
I don't know if there needs to be a time limit, but something.
That's my thought. Is like, Dave Tomlinson was talking during the broadcast. The longer this goes, the more likelihood it's going to be a good goal.
Yes,
which it was. The thing about the review, though, if you quite literally have to look at like 7 different angles, 4 different times over the course of 10 minutes, and I'm being facetious here when I'm saying this, the likelihood is the call on the ice stands. I don't know if taking 10 minutes changes that. And if it does, that begs the question that it wasn't clear and obvious.
Yeah, and I was going to say the clear and obvious thing, and don't get me wrong, VAR, like the clear and obvious kind of threshold, like it's not like we don't want to get the call right, but we want to trust the officials, because once again, this was a Winnipeg challenge, not instigated by the officials themselves or Toronto. So
and Winnipeg is then down a player result. Not again, that's the way things are. Vancouver though couldn't find a way to score. I think the best opportunity went to the Jets.
That happened quite a lot on Vancouver power plays today.
But Vancouver had a 1-goal lead in a game that it looked like they had business playing in. They persevered through some early adversity. They got their goal. Things are going to come up Vancouver. Second period gets underway and Vancouver comes out as if they realize, hey, we kind of got a chance here. And they played real well until Kyle Connor scored to tie it up midway through the period. And it's almost like someone went and popped that little balloon that was helping the Canucks sort of, elevate their game. Because there was just a significant letdown. It almost felt like the team appeared to think, oh, well, we're done.
Yeah, it did deflate significantly in the third period. Yeah, I just think Canucks were staying in a game whilst looking, like not great. This was not the Canucks team that beat Winnipeg 6-2. The other day. But it's almost like if you're hanging in the game for that long and not capitalizing on any opportunity like a power play, Winnipeg aren't going to give you forever.
No, and with a goaltender like Helbeck that, who, Winnipeg fans are chanting MVP, and it's hard to believe otherwise with how well he played in that game, in comparative to how well he's had over the course of the season. But Mason Appleton's goal in the third period, the Canucks seemed cooked at that point. He scores at 6:24. The Canucks, they're already looking deflated. Now they're behind the 8 ball. And Cole Perfetti, I believe, as you had described, undressing forward.
Yeah, at least buy him dinner first.
That was that. Like, the Vancouver Canucks are now down 2 goals. It's almost, do or die time. In fact, like, it almost was. Like, 2 or 3 minutes after that goal, Tocchet pulls Demko, and the Vancouver Canucks then have the extra attacker on the ice. Quinn Hughes, the start of his essentially like 5-minute final shift of the game. But you know how the Vancouver Canucks can Canuck like no one else?
They said, like, you know what's better than 6 skaters on the ice?
7. Oh, the too many men penalties that we see, like the Vancouver.
I mean, they haven't done it in a while.
No, but like, okay, but it's not like, oh my goodness, that's unusual. Like, we expect this to happen. Like, is this like this for any other team? Like, I don't follow any other team in the NHL. But is there a team out there like the Vancouver Canucks that looks at the necessity of having, 7 extra skaters on the ice at any given time a good thing? Like, there was one time they got called this season when they had like 3 extra skaters on the ice. And another where I think they scored a goal with 2 extra skaters on the ice, but it wasn't caught by any of the officials. I think that was the game against Detroit or something like that.
Yeah.
I remember seeing the snapshot, and the Vancouver Canucks essentially entire bench was on the ice before the goal. But you're down to how that happens. Like, is that a coaching issue? Is that a player personnel issue? Is that just
Canucks can't count.
Cohesiveness? Canucks can't count. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know, but obviously Canucks took the too many men penalties. Too many men penalty.
Too many times.
And then
Too many men.
They decided that we don't need to pull the goalie.
Well, no, and so actually, that was the weird part. They're talking like Demko they get a
like
face
skating
off,
towards the bench,
and Tocchet's not even looking at him.
He's just like purposefully staring across, like.
And it almost was like Winnipeg was expecting the goaltender to be pulled because of how they were, approaching the power play. And so Vancouver was carrying the puck with 4 men in the offensive zone for a good 30 or 45 seconds with a goaltender. So they're down a player, but controlling play. And again, I think it's just Winnipeg was like, okay, what's going on? Are they going to put their goaltender? Let's play smart. Let's not, allow them to get an odd man rush, because we were cheating to try to get the goal. Didn't matter. The Winnipeg Jets won 3-1. The Vancouver Canucks are not yet mathematically eliminated. But boy, oh boy.
Yeah.
Did they need those 2 points tonight just to continue to have a chance beyond a chance.
And to be clear, we're not and I'm not saying that they would have got those 2 points or got anywhere close just by pulling a goalie. It just seems strange to me that they're like, I did listen to Sportsnet afterwards, and they were debating this, and like, either Tocchet doesn't think this is their do or die moment.
Well, then why does he pull
or
Demko
he's given
with like almost 5 minutes left in the period?
Yeah, like surely he does. And then it just looked a bit strange to me. Like, it just looked a bit defeatist. Like, surely you at least go through the motions of.
But let's say it's not the do or die moment. Getting Demko back in the net for the defensive zone face-off makes sense. Leaving Demko in net until you get control of the puck in the offensive zone makes sense. You're now throwing the puck around like it's on a string in the offensive zone.
Yeah, like
Demko
they actually
be on the bench.
Did some decent moves there. It seemed like absolute. Yeah, it just seems strange to me. Like, what message is Tocchet trying to send there? Like,
who knows?
And I'm not buying into the fact that he's checked out or he's already on a plane to Philly or whatever it is.
That's what I was actually going to say. Is it possible that he has checked out?
No, I don't think so. Like, he checked out in the last 2 minutes. It just seemed like an odd choice.
So we're a little off the rails here, but it is Canucks related. The Vancouver Canucks hold a team option on Rick Tocchet.
Yes, which they haven't.
They haven't exercised. But Rick doesn't have the wherewithal to go to Philly and book his plane ticket unless he creates a situation where the team decides maybe this isn't the guy for us after all.
And that's what they decide if he refuses to pull
No,
back.
I'm just. But could there be a number of different things? I'm putting the tinfoil hat on. Okay,
Yeah.
I've got it. I've got all the string talking. Like there's Talkit.
Yeah, you're doing a
there's
Charlie
Boudreaux,
Day.
There's exactly. I got Mike Keenan down here for some reason.
And can I just say, like, far be it for me to defend John Tortorella, who I think is actively bad for the game of hockey. Like, do not mistake me, but I think it's a terrible situation in Philly, and I wouldn't want to be the new coach stepping into that.
Well, apparently, 38 teams out of the entire league want Rick Tocchet. So.
38, wow. And Gritty's a big fan.
Yep. So the Vancouver Canucks lose to the Jets. What does that, mean in the grand scheme of things? Well, the Vancouver Canucks are still on the outside looking in. When we last spoke, that was where they were. I mean, they were sitting just outside. Well, no, I say just outside. They're outside, but just. St. Louis has 87 points. Minnesota Wild has 87 points. The Vancouver Canucks have 81. Those of you doing math at home know that is 6 points. That means the Vancouver Canucks need to go and win 3 games that either Minnesota or St. Louis does not. The St. Louis Blues are currently never going to lose another hockey game in the NHL. They're currently on a 9-game win streak. I have to think that St. Louis is going to win a handful more games, just the way they're playing.
Yeah, I mean, I've already said this last week. It's your guys' fault.
Yeah, so sorry. Many apologies. Blame the geopolitical nonsense coming from the hoser down the south. Regardless, Bennington is Winnington. So that leaves the Vancouver Canucks. I know, I'm horrible. Make those faces at me all you want. It's never going to change me. The Vancouver Canucks are chasing the Wild and the Oilers of all teams. Now, the Oilers have a 2-point cushion and a game in hand. So I'm kind of thinking the Oilers, despite their current troubles, are probably going to hold on there. So what it comes down to is the Vancouver Canucks are chasing the Minnesota Wild. The Minnesota Wild currently have the same number of games played, but those 87 points are good and a record that is actually very similar to Vancouver. So all things being considered, if Minnesota continues to match Vancouver's record, the Canucks are done.
Yeah, and, that's still a wide margin to make up, if not, yes, they do have a head-to-head to play, which is the only thing falling really in the Canucks' favor there. Canucks have a tough schedule. They have to play Dallas, they have to play Colorado.
Well, they're you look at their schedule. They have one game where they're playing someone they're chasing.
Yeah.
They're not chasing the Flames. Flames have 2 games in hand. So you could argue that the Flames are in the mix there too. So they don't have any head-to-head against the Flames. So they don't have a means to leapfrog with a win. They're not playing the Oilers. No means to leapfrog to win. They're not playing the Blues. No means to leapfrog to win. Which I actually find kind of weird because historically the NHL will always seem to tack on a mean-nothing Oilers or Flames game. Or 2 to the Vancouver Canucks end of season schedule. But this season, that's not the case. In the week that will be, the Vancouver Canucks are going to take on the Kraken on Wednesday night. They then have an afternoon game against the Anaheim Ducks at home and the Vegas Golden Knights the following Sunday, a back-to-back. What say you, Anna?
What did we do to deserve a 1 p.m. game at home? Gross. I don't like it. I say they beat the Kraken. I say they beat the Ducks. And just when you were starting to think maybe Minnesota have lost a game or so in that time, then bam, you lose to Vegas.
Okay. So I agree. I have them beating the Kraken. I have them beating the Ducks. I have them losing to Vegas. That's us being positive, right? You've got to consider the record of C4 here. Anna and I are generally not that optimistic about things. And yet, despite this level of optimism, we're it's not enough.
Yeah. Just to say, in that time, Wild have to play the Devils, the Rangers, but, Monday, Wednesday, the Islanders, but then the Stars. So, like, yeah, maybe Wild lose 2 of those games, maybe. But, yeah. Again,
I mean,
we'll
St.
get
Louis,
into this
Detroit,
in the next section.
Pittsburgh, Colorado.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, let's say, for argument's sake, Colorado beats the Blues. Not that they will. The Blues are not losing to the Red Wings. They're not losing to the Penguins. So there's no ground being made up. Like, the Vancouver Canucks have, like, no realistic way to make up ground. Blues play the Jets, Oilers, Kraken, and the Hockey Club to wrap up the season. You know, so they might lose, let's say, 2-3 games there. Let's say they lose 3. For argument's sake, they lose 3. That's the spread the Vancouver Canucks need to make up. But that means the Vancouver Canucks have to, like, run the table.
Yeah,
which I don't
honestly,
think anyone realistically feels could happen.
Yeah, Canucks need to win out, pretty much.
I mean,
Plus
win
count.
out just
Plus
to get
count.
the Blues.
Yeah, on
And then,
Blues
you
to
know, looking
lose
at the
some games.
Wild, let's see, Devils, Rangers, Isles, Stars, Sharks, Flames, Ducks to wind up. Like,
Yeah, like, they probably will lose a handful of those, but not enough. But, yeah, well, I feel like we'll get into this in half full, half empty, but, like, if we're looking at these schedules in this detail, like, the dream was dead a while ago.
it was, yeah. Oh, man. It is the role of life for us as Vancouver Canucks fans. Each and every season to have hope, only to have that hope, you know, pulled from us as the season progresses. You and I are going to take a break because everyone else is listening to the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Anna and Chris.
Take hitting out of the game. You can't hit anymore, so don't do it.
The unsportsmanlike conduct, I want to get an explanation on that.
No kidding.
Because how do you get suspended for unsportsmanlike conduct?
Plus interference. There's no interference there. He had the puck.
Now, Madison never ever did that before. Now, why did he do it? And that because he was mad.
Well, your early favorite for the Calder Trophy, that's for sure. Elias Pettersson, you might even say your early favorite for the Hart Trophy.
Just to get back to your question, Elias is going to play plenty. He didn't play. He's going to get a lot of power play time. And, yeah, I'm concerned about our offense. We lost 200-point players, and we've got to find a way to score.
When did the Vancouver Canucks playoff dream die? It's not quite dead. I mean, let's be real. Mathematically, so you're telling me they have a chance.
Okay. But they are, like, tied to the tracks and the train is coming. It just isn't...
Tiny detail.
Yeah.
Train still has to get there.
It's funny. As I mentioned last week, I was on the early edition on Wednesday with Stephen Quinn. It was nice to talk to him. Got a conversation with another smart Canucks fan. And I thought, you know, was I a bit negative? I finished by saying the Canucks were going to miss the playoffs. They're just going to miss it, just by a small amount. Was I too negative overall? Now I'm like, no. I was right. Like, the vibe is they didn't... I don't think anyone deserves anything in sports. That's not how it works. Justice is not sports. But let's look at the team that started this season. Let's look at the team that started last season. Were you like, that's a playoff contender? No.
No. I mean,
but everything went right.
Yeah, like you and I, if we were to rewind 2 seasons, like to the previous, we would have been telling you, which I'm sure we did, this team isn't any better on paper. It is statistically the same team that just missed the playoffs. Other teams are getting better. It will require amazing things to occur. And what transpired last season? Amazing things. A goaltender who was playing out of his mind. The Vancouver Canucks were scoring goals that they should not have been scoring. Like the metrics did not show that the Vancouver Canucks were a good team, but despite the metrics, they were finding ways to win games they had no business winning.
Pettersson had a great 2/3 of a season until he didn't. And then when he fell off, like, you know, other people stepped up in the end of the season and into the playoffs. Goalies stepped up. Like, we had the miracle of Shelovs in the playoffs. Like, third-dress goalie. Plums out of his skin. Brock Bass was clutch. All these things. everything went wrong this year.
Well, despite everything going wrong this year, you have to consider the Vancouver Canucks were in the mix through to February.
Yeah.
And I think it was around then when I had said, I wish I could cheer for a team that didn't rely on a long list of what ifs hitting big for a team to be successful. And someone had responded, no, it's not like that. Look, this is the same team that did well last season. Look at all their, Demko, no one could have imagined he'd been out so long. No one could have imagined that Petey and Miller would have their issues. No one could have imagined that Quinn Hughes would get hurt. Like, you're just rephrasing the what ifs.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's just like, yeah, obviously Demko's had a on and off injury history, but yeah, it is bad luck that he has been so injured, but we also got pretty inspired goaltending by Kevin Lankinen. Who was, bargain basement find at the end of the window.
And hopefully won't have a bargain basement or contract that belongs in the basement bargain bin.
Sure.
Trying to use alliteration.
Yeah, good job.
Thank you. Good start, Chris.
Yeah, we'll put that on your chart. I don't even know what I'm saying now. Yeah, and could we expected the Pedersen-Miller thing to blow up? No. I agree that was unexpected, but the locker room dynamics have been, let's say, off-kilter, and I'm not blaming Quinn Hughes for that. It's been like that for a while, and we don't have Peacekeeper Bowen there anymore.
Well, no, and that's the dressing room has been a quote-unquote issue for different reasons for many seasons. It was described as a country club, and Rick Tocchet was brought in to change things up.
Which worked for a while.
Well, but therein lay the issue is that the country club atmosphere may have been what was preventing some of the
100%. You don't
problems coming to the surface.
You don't get brawls at the country club.
No,
you just don't.
And if the front office and the coaching staff were not aware of these problems, I beg to question whether or not they were paying attention.
Yeah.
This is not something that just comes to light. You and I know for certain that JT Miller and Elias Pettersson are different dudes.
Yeah, and have never gotten along.
Have different views. You're right. And you can say, they're professionals and they're $1 million NHL players and they need to get along. And damn straight, they should. But they weren't. And they never really have. Except when Bo had the country club operation running pretty smooth and the Vancouver Canucks had a season without Bo where they suddenly started to win. Winning cures it all.
Yeah, and when you brought Rick Tocchet in, yes, there needed to be a change, and when you brought Rick Tocchet in, he's going to bring a certain amount of defensive discipline. A
fair amount of uninspired hockey.
This is true, but obviously they took that risk, and they took that risk when they kept Miller over Bo. And I understand why they did it, but to sort of make those moves without mitigating it in some way or managing the personalities, that seems like a bad choice.
Yeah. It is what it is. I mean, where we are now, to the question, when did the dream die? To me, I would say the dream died when the NHL took a Four Nations face-off break. Because the Vancouver Canucks came back from that dead.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe because Pedersen wasn't getting revived at that point.
Well, that was the hope. He was going to go. He was going to refine his game, and he was going to come back. He didn't refine his game. What was probably made clear is he was actually hurt, and had been hurting. And then upon his
hurting,
return,
Chris.
The Vancouver Canucks realized their reliance on the what ifs had run its course, and I think it was they lost the first 4 games back.
Yes, maybe.
Or,
that's the thing. When I was on the radio, I said this too. It's so hard for me to say, oh yeah, once you lose to Winnipeg, it's done. I watched them lose to Buffalo. I watched them lose to Utah. I never thought at any point in the season that this was a playoff caliber contender. Well, yeah. So
They lost 4 out of 5. They had an overtime win against the Kings.
Right.
In that stretch after the Four Nations phase off.
Yeah, to hang on this long, we're prying the playoff hopes out of Quinn Hughes' injured hands. He has kept Canucks competitive for way longer than they should. Some late season spark from Pedersen and Hoglander, that's been part of it too, but yeah. I'm not saying it doesn't mean anything.
No.
The wins they had last week, in the last week or so, the attitude we've seen, I think that should encourage everyone, but it doesn't change the character of the team.
Yeah. I'm looking at the schedule here. So, I still hold true that returning for the Four Nations face-off is when they lost things. But then you look at more recent times. They lost a game to the New York Rangers they had no business losing. They lost a game to the St. Louis Blues that, well, yes, they had to fight tooth and nail to get back into, was a game that was within reach of them winning. If the Vancouver Canucks get 2 points from those 2 games, the conversation that we're having right now is a far different one. They're not out of it yet. They're still in the mix. They still were well within reach. A team that they would be chasing would be 1 point closer. And the Vancouver Canucks, are a team that still has more than just a chance. Someone was saying that, the dream died the day they traded JT Miller because the team was never going to be a playoff team after that. If they trade Petey, there's no guarantees that JT Miller around means that the team's chemistry
I can almost guarantee that it would have gotten worse.
Right?
And that is not really to slander JT in any way. It's just to say he was checked out. He was done.
Well, yeah, I mean...
he wasn't finding that game again in Vancouver.
His absence, for whatever reason it might be, and if it was, for mental health reasons, good on him for taking it. But there were issues and things that JT needed to sort out for JT.
Mm-hmm.
And then, absent of all the rumor and conjecture, his offense is present, but that's not going to change things. In fact, if things were still going askew as they are, what's not to suggest that a guy like him would be tolerating it from his teammates? And here you have a different problem, right? And I'm not suggesting that JT is the problem, was the problem, or would continue to be a problem, but something needed to come to head. And all things being equal, the player where there were more question marks was the one that got moved out. Others will suggest that the moment the Vancouver Canucks didn't improve the blue line is when the team missed the playoffs. I mean, I can't suggest that I saw a moment where both Tyler Myers and Carson Soucy would have regressed as significantly as they were. It felt to me that pairing had found each other and could give the Vancouver Canucks a steady, second pairing with a healthy Quinn Hughes and a healthy Philip Hronek. 2 players who each themselves suffered injuries.
Yeah, and not to mention that through, they did deal with the Carson Soucy sort of regression through a trade, and with the JT Miller situation, kind of boosted their depth both in defense. Marcus Pettersson's been a great addition to the PK and beyond. Mancini's a really interesting young player. Drew O'Connor's been really good depth scoring.
He's Jag Plus.
Jag Plus, that's a good way to put him. I haven't missed anyone, right, from the trades? Yeah.
The Hedl injury.
The Hedl of it all.
Right? The Hedl injury, the PD injury, the Hoglander injuries that occurred within games of each other. I mean, is that when the playoff dream died, that the Vancouver Canucks finally are putting things together? They're starting to see an offensive turnaround. The pairing of PD and Hoglander that everyone had been calling for forever and a day was finally together. I mean, if none of the other suggestions that you and I have provided is when the dream died, I would have to say it's those 3 players going down with injuries.
Yeah, and let's talk about that, injuries and how we move forward. If the playoff dream is dead, where do we go from here in the short term, as in, like, moving forward? I mean, you have to say we haven't really heard updates. I'm guessing that it's Pedersen might be ready to come back before the end of the season. We don't fully know that. I would say just don't rush him. Don't rush Hoglander. And 120 billion said do not rush Philip Hedl. Like,
well, what about Quinn
that's
Hughes?
the most concerning.
Do you rest? At what point do you rest Quinn? Like, he's clearly hurt.
He is clearly hurt. He's clearly not playing his best hockey, and he's still clearly one of the best players on the Canucks.
Yeah.
That's a harder one because
they're still in it.
They're still in it mathematically, and I just don't think he's gonna step out of the firing line of machine guns until that happens. Yeah, and 2, yeah. Is it the kind of thing that would, like, damage him long term to keep playing? Obviously, they've made that calculated decision that it's not going to. Whether that's the right decision or not, I'm not sure, but yeah, I think it's just a lot harder to get Quinn off the ice.
Yeah, I'm trying to just do off the top of my head here, like, what's the Vancouver Canucks magic number? And I want to say the sort of the doom number, not the magic number, because there's no number that they can get to guarantee anything right now. I'd say the doom number is any combination of 4 losses or 4 wild wins.
Yeah.
Like, it's.
I mean, we've got,
which could happen in 4 games.
Yeah.
So
8 games to go. Yeah, you've got to say if they lose half of them, then or.
Well, in the Vancouver Canucks, like 4, but realistically, the Vancouver Canucks have to win out. They can't lose another game.
Oh, 100%. But it's more a case of when do we know that it's over?
Yeah, when do we know that? Over. It's over. Yeah. Oh, Hannah, what it's like to be a Vancouver Canucks fan. Hey, you know what? They could have another positive week. Look at that. They got points out of a bunch of games this week. We should be all optimistic, happy, joy. But as is life with a Vancouver Canuck fan, it's never that easy. If you reach this point of the show and you'd like to, maybe cheer us up, one of the best ways to do that is to support us. And you can do that either through word of mouth, telling people about us, sharing your thoughts about us on social media. There was another couple kind posts I saw on the Canucks subreddit about the C4 podcast.
One of my colleagues told me about one, actually, which was nice.
So, always nice to see that. I apologize that it takes me like a week or 2 or months to realize that they're there.
I never go on Reddit, so...
But you can also support us financially either through a regular monthly or annual donation. I say donation, but contribution would be the way to look at it, or as a one-off. And that's just having you go to buymeacoffee.com/C4podcast. Buy me a coffee, or as Anna and I like to call it.
Buy me a pint.
You can throw a few bucks our way for literal pints, or alternatively, if you support us monthly or annually, you get access to C4 Off the Rails, our completely off the rails, who knows what we're going to talk about, show that we record each every week. It's about 15-20 minutes long of us just talking. Last week we were talking about Elbows Up. Weeks past we were talking about board games, so always good fun is had there. Not entirely sure what our cadence will be like over the course of the off season. I hate to think that there won't be playoff hockey, but realistically it's a stretch at this point. But over the next couple of weeks we'll figure things out. And if you've not already found us on social media, we're everywhere, and our social media handle is different no matter where you look. We're at the C4 Podcast on X, the Real C4 Podcast on Threads. We're C4podcast.com on Blue Sky. I'd love for there to be consistency, but the problem is that, other C4s take our names.
Yeah.
I blame the other C4s.
I do too.
So, Anna, any final words of wisdom?
Yeah. Get out there, and if you're lucky enough to live in a place that has some nice sunshine or cherry blossoms or whatever, get outside, have a walk, and enjoy that, and stop letting your heart be broken by sports teams. Easier said than done.
Yeah, words of wisdom from me. No matter how bad things get, there's always a chance for them to get better.
Nice.
Again, it's just a chance they get better. No guarantees they will, but there's always a chance. And that's really what motivates me as a Canucks fan, is you're telling me there's always a chance. So on behalf of NA Force ICR3, myself, Chris at Life Force, is signing off of this episode with We Out.